Well, last time we did a show, we were in La Fortuna.
Yep. Yeah, we had your birthday there. That was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, went to a hot spring. That was nice.
totally.
That was a fun day, and then otherwise we did like nothing. We spent what was it 4 days? Yeah, 4 days in La Fortuna, Costa Rica. We had his birthday, so we went to a hot spring and a big waterfall, and we went to dinner and chilled. And then the rest of the time I just spent reading and drinking coffee pretty much.
Yeah, the first day getting there was like a transitional day. There was 4 hours on a bus. So by the time we got there, it was mid-afternoon. That was actually comparative from a weather perspective. San Jose versus La Fortuna. It was like so sunny that day. It was such a gorgeous day. And then it was like such a sigh of relief to be out of the city as well. Yeah. I just remember sitting there like drinking the coffee and eating that steak at that first restaurant. But yeah, like you said, we were there for 4 nights, but that first day was transition. Then the next day was we
had one in between day.
What did we do in that in between day?
It's nothing.
Oh, it was raining hard.
Yeah, we were going to do a volcano hike.
Yeah.
We were going to do a volcano hike, but it was absolutely just torrential downpouring.
It was literally rainforest.
So I don't know, we were stretching and shit, but I just kind of read all day.
Yeah.
I think I went to the gym, but otherwise just did that.
Yeah, and then the next day was my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Woke up to a text from my sister that my grandma died.
Yeah.
So my grandma passed away on my birthday, and we woke up and I was up a little bit before you, so I had an opportunity to kind of just sit on my yoga mat and meditate about it and listen to music in the Bose headphones. We actually had a little bit of weed left over we picked up when we were in San Jose, so I smoked a little bit of the weed, sat down on the yoga mat, listened to music, was just reflecting on her life and some time together, and had a good cry on that. And then I came in, started pouring coffee.
Yeah, I got to get it going. Yeah. The Baileys.
Yeah, I got it. I woke up so on my birthday, I woke up to like a display and a decoration that Ian set up. And it was very funny and enlightening. And it was really very three-dimensional. We talk about being three-dimensional in the men's work back when we did our men's weekend. And like it had like a funny element to it. It had like a Gandhi-esque kind of like enlightened version, and there's also some note taking and stuff like that, so taking action, things like that, inspiring.
True. Yeah.
There's a big cock and balls made out of tomatoes and carrots.
Yeah,
that was a funny way to wake up. And then I just started pouring coffee, and that birthday was super fun. So
yeah, man, that was good. Had some drinks, smoked some weed,
thanks
chilled
for setting that up.
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah, that first big thing we did was we went to the La Fortuna waterfall, and that was just epic.
That was crazy.
Epic.
Just sat in these like very wet rocks down by the waterfall that was previously going too hard for us to go down there, and for some reason they deemed that we could now go close to it, so we're sitting down there.
It was raining so much the day before that like when we got there, like, sorry guys, you can't get in the water, you can't get close to the waterfall. And then as soon as we get there, they get a radio saying we can go in.
So what is the hot spring that we went to? It's hot from the volcano.
Yeah,
from the lava?
Just the volcano heats up the spring and the water that comes and trickles down slowly. It was interesting. Like the further down you went, the colder the water was. Right. So it was just like parts of the heat would dissipate as it would go further down. But so we did that. It was so nice to do the waterfall first, and the water was freezing cold. Yeah. And we sat.
So we were kind of cold for a bit.
Yeah, we sat in that water, just looking up at it like, holy shit. And then we're like, all right, let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here and get to the heat.
Get out to the hot spring.
Yeah, it's interesting how I guess in the last week or so, we've been in and around a lot of nature. Yeah. Because we were in La Fortuna, so we saw the waterfall with a little bit of the volcano, but the hot springs. Yeah. And we were right on this like mountainscape by the Airbnb that we were staying.
So cool.
And then we went to Monte Verde, and guess we took an early morning shuttle, and then we got on a ferry. Yeah. So we were on a boat across water, and we could see the mountains with all the clouds, and then a really cool drive up to to our hostel in Monte Verde, which was like up very like remote, and it was in this place that looked like a rehab center, basically what you'd think, and just like lush Zen garden type, like lots of stuff to just sit around,
big yoga studio,
like meditation
natural lighting
studio to hang out. So a lot of just nature with that, and then we just kind of hung out there, didn't do a whole lot, but we watched the Super Bowl, saw Tom Brady win his 7th Super Bowl. That was cool.
Guy's a winner.
Yeah,
guy's a champion
for sure. He won his first Super Bowl in 2002.
2002.
Yeah. So
What
19
was
years
I
ago.
doing in 2002? I think I was like 7 years old.
Yeah. You won a Super Bowl. Already.
7 years old. He's winning Super
Been
Bowls.
getting it after that.
Yeah.
And then we took a shuttle and another ferry across the water to get to Santa Teresa here in Costa Rica. And it's an actual beach town.
Yeah.
Where it's just one long dirt road, like a couple hundred meters up from the beach.
You could probably hear the cars driving along the dirt road right now. We're like literally right beside it.
Yeah. And the reason why we came here predominantly is our friend who we worked with in Toronto.
MM.
Yeah. And then him and his fiance and a couple of his friends and then surrounding friend group are all out here. And it's this town that is almost pretty much dominated by like foreigners, expat, whether it's Canadian, American, some Europeans as well. And it's very, very, very interesting. I mean, we've only been here this is our second full day, and it's been quite
jam-packed with activity.
Yeah, it's been very jam-packed with activities.
Yeah, like going back to being in La Fortuna after the birthday day, like we got pretty we got pretty proper crunk that night.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks to the display and set up with the cock and balls. There was also like vodka and Baileys. And so we were drinking and smoking, and that's kind of why
we finished the whole vodka.
We drank that whole vodka bottle, but we were drinking like at the volcano and then at the hot springs, and then we met some people at the hot springs that we saw again when we were in Monteverde, Israeli people, and yeah, so that's kind of why like some of the next days were pretty chill. We went pretty hard on that day.
Yeah,
it was so nice to get to the Salinas and just like have really nothing to do.
Yeah, there was a hot tub there.
It was breakfast was included, so we were drinking coffees and playing chess every morning there.
Yeah,
and like we're thinking about how it did really feel like we were at rehab because we were just drinking coffee
it's
together.
It's not like we're like working per se. So
no,
it's kind of fucking there.
Yeah,
cut off. Like we even went into the town to watch the Super Bowl. And
not much going on.
Next to nothing going on in Monteverde. They
had a lot of plantations though.
Plantations?
Yeah, because of the high altitude, they were growing like Arabica coffee beans up there.
Yeah, you did a tour?
Yeah, I did the Don Juan. I learned quite a bit about coffee and chocolate. You know, the kind of the most meaningful thing to me is because I really like eating chocolate. Is I learned that the chocolate companies that make cacao, virtually all of them separate chocolate into two different products. The first one is cacao butter, and the second one is cacao powder, and they call it cocoa butter, cocoa powder. And the cocoa butter gets sold to the cosmetic companies because it's so good for your skin. It's like good for face cream and lotion and things like that. And then the powder gets sold to chocolate companies. And the reason why the chocolate you buy in the store, like the Nestle's and things like that, aren't good for you is because the cacao butter is taken out, and instead they fill it with modified preservatives like palm oil and all these other shitty quality food. So chocolate in of itself, like closer to 85%, 100% is really good for you because it has that cacao butter. They don't take it out. And so anyway,
it's pretty good though.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean,
modified sugar.
I think it's interesting because there's obviously a lot of legitimate complaints around corporations and capitalism and all these kind of things, but there's different ways to look at the same thing. I remember I was reflecting on this about how so much people eating so much sugar and there's obesity. And I was talking to a coworker and I was like, isn't it wild that these fast food companies and different chocolate bars, all those kind of things have like top level scientists to try and bioengineer and like hack your taste buds so as to like make it something you'd want to eat more and theoretically get addicted. And he said to me, he's like, yeah, isn't it great?
Yeah.
It's like it actually gives you freedom to use your discretion for moderation, because eating it once in a while is fine. And then when you do, it tastes so damn good.
Yeah.
Because they literally have scientists. They're paying like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to make it agree with your taste buds.
Hook 'em, boys.
Yeah.
Like what can you do?
It's great stuff.
Yeah. And no, I agree 100% because especially if you are aware of that and you have the education around like what have they done to engineer these foods so that it is. I understand why I'm so addicted to them. I understand why it tastes
I wish they didn't invest in making the chocolate taste so good for us. Yeah. Oh.
That was actually one of the realizations that I had when I was started eating here in Santa Teresa when I was like looking at the prices, and I was like, holy shit, compared to like Playa del Carmen when we were back in Mexico, this is like relatively expensive food.
Yeah.
And then every time I was biting into it, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
That's why the quality is high, the nutritional value is high. They're sourcing it from the local farmers, so that's everything's fresh. Everything was just produced a couple days ago.
It's interesting, this place, as opposed to many of the other places we've been to. There isn't a lot of corporations in here. There's no McDonald's or Starbucks or really any of the big international North American type companies in here at all. I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna end up in Tamarindo at all, but it would be interesting to find out if they had that.
I'm sure they have. You would think it's a significantly bigger population.
Do they have McDonald's in Tulum? I don't think so.
No, they have Starbucks and Domino's Pizza.
Oh, they did have Starbucks. Yeah,
Starbucks and Domino's.
Once you went a little further out, there was.
But I mean, only being here 2.5 days, just barely over 2 days, seems a lot better than Tulum, in my opinion.
I had a lot of fun at that plantation, so thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Monteverde overall was a good time.
Yeah.
We met River as well.
True.
And we did a bunch of fun meditations.
Yeah, as a meditation yoga teacher from Bosnia. She's been living in Sweden. She said she speaks like 7 or 8 languages or something like that.
That's impressive.
Anyway, yeah. So, that was a lot of fun. Monteverde was good. It was a good palate cleanser of an experience to kind of just hang out for a bit. And then it is also very nice after kind of bouncing around to a couple places for a couple of days. We're going to be here for at least just another 2 weeks.
So
it's satisfying, man.
Totally.
To not know that we're in this place for at least the next 14 or 15 days.
Yeah. We'd settle in.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to meet we've met a bunch of people already through our buddy Mike.
Yeah. He's living here with his fiance, his sister and her boyfriend, other friend and her boyfriend. And I think they have more people coming in, and then they have other friends within friends within the town.
Yeah.
And it seems they've only been here for a week. It seems like they know
every time we walk.
Yeah. We've been here for 2 nights. Saw the sunset both nights, and they're just, they're quite social people.
Yeah. It speaks volumes to Mike's character. Every time you're like, I know Mike. And then like, oh, you know Mike? Okay, cool. Yeah. So it's almost like just because you know Mike, they're like, okay, this guy could be at least a decent guy.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Thanks, Mike, for making it easy to meet people out here. Appreciate that. And overall excited to be here. And we stayed up late last night, had fun with the crew.
Yep.
So maybe a little lower energy today, but nice recovery day.
Yeah.
We got money from the ATM.
Yeah, we got money from the ATM. Anything you wanted to talk about today specifically? What do you got here, bro?
Yeah, these are just the events of things we did. I think I wrote Proper Crunk. We got Proper Crunk on my birthday. That was so fun.
Crunk. Yeah,
that was so fun, man. Yeah, just like put the speaker in the middle of the Airbnb, and we're just like drinking mixed drinks and smoking the joint, and just
we were just
chilling there, listening.
I forgot about that.
And just vibing so hard.
I forgot that night.
Some of those Troy Boy drops hit so hard. You're just like, what? Let me listen to some Juice.
But Mike's place, they have this. It's right off it's on just a couple minute walk from where we are. But it's like a small villa type situation with a bunch of bedrooms, and there's hammocks everywhere, and it's like an open concept.
It's like
outdoor compound with like a roof over top, so like semi outside.
I was so surprised how open concept it was.
Yeah, it's very cool. I mean, it's our friend who has basically dreams of creating communities / commune type situations where it's like co-living space with groups of friends, and he wants to, I think, get to a point one day where it'll be at least semi self-sufficient in terms of growing plants. And it's a natural step, and I think we've been talking about it a lot, but the digital nomad thing with remote work, it just seems like it's growing and growing, because this town, as we said, the majority of the people are foreigners, and a lot of the people are working, and it's all people, the majority demographic is foreigners in their late 20s and like early to mid 30s that are just all pretty laid back people. Everyone's beach town, everyone's like super fit here. Everyone's so super beautiful. Fit and
holy shit.
Yeah, it's like moths to a flame.
Fit.
Mike said, attractive people get invited to places. Sure. And then his sister's boyfriend piped in, be like, I noticed you got here a little late, Mark.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
nice job there.
Yeah.
Like 85% of the people that I've seen have been like beautiful people. So
yeah, it's crazy.
happy to be here in Santa Teresa.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons, but I've
I've
been craving and missing the beach so much since we were in Playa del Carmen.
Yeah, and like a little bit of just constancy too, just like a semi amount, even if it's a couple weeks. It's better than a couple days to like get settled in, because when you're traveling and you're only in a place for 3 to 4 days, there's like a day where you're getting there and getting settled in, and then the last day you're kind of organizing and packing, getting ready to leave, and then you really only have a little bit of time where you're fully settled in at that point. And you're figuring out where to do laundry and all you're doing all you're
orienting yourself.
Yeah, there's chaos and you're creating order in that. And by the time you get your bearings on creating the order in the chaos, it's time to move on to the next chaos.
Yeah.
So
I think I was talking to one of Mike's friends here, his name's Shay, and I was saying that I need at least 2 weeks to really settle in. And I was talking to him about writing and getting like a few really productive flow states, where like it takes me a little bit of time to get oriented and get a routine and get a groove, and then I get a couple really great days of writing in. And so I was like, I need like around 2 weeks. He's like, bro, you should be shooting for at least a month, because he's like, yeah, like a first week of orienting yourself, the second week of like really getting into a groove, and then like having like 2 weeks of flow state. So we were considering already. Yeah, it's that good. It was literally that good. It was
literally our second day. We had slept one night over, and we had already started like getting in talks of extending our trip for another week or two or something like that. I mean, I just don't see why not. More than anything,
all the indicators.
It's just like, why not? It seems like a window of opportunity where it's like a good friend of ours, where who knows if or when, even if we were able to spend this much time just hanging out in this chill setting again, when that would be, when all the stars would align again. So sometimes you gotta make hay while the sun shines, so to speak.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Like taking advantage of that expression, make hay while the sun shines. It reminds me of like writing when you have energy, and doing the podcast when you have energy, and socializing with people when you feel like being social, and like paying attention to those cues.
Yeah, it's like one of the compliments of Tom Brady during the Super Bowl, but it's a sports thing in general, where you take what the defense gives you. You don't just have some idea in your mind and have this come hell or high water that it's just going to go, because then you're probably following through on this conviction that wasn't based on really enough variables to warrant that level of conviction.
Yeah.
The old Jeff Bezos, who just stepped down from CEO of Amazon, but he talked about the 70% rule of making decisions. Because if you wait till you're 100% on a decision, even if it does work out, it's just you're going to take way too long to make decisions. Sure. So you should have the direction you're going and try and stick to that if it makes sense, but then be open-minded to course correcting when it makes sense to.
Yeah, and we were even talking. I didn't know that Jeff Bezos stepped down, so I wonder what he'll be up to and spending his time on. But we were even walking along the beach today. We were going to the beach next door to us because it was the only bank, so it was like a 30-minute walk down the beach, which was beautiful. Thanks for sharing that with me. You were talking about James Clear, and he was talking about the like decision making, and sometimes the most optimal decision.
Yeah, I said the most optimal decision, the actual right decision for you to make isn't always the optimal decision, because by the time you gather all the information and the variables and the analysis to make an optimal decision, the opportunity might have already passed, or even if it did, to make a less optimal decision, but have more time invested into that earlier would actually outweigh the more optimal decision later. So, he said, by its very nature, the right decision is probably going to be a less than optimal decision, which is kind of a little bit of a paradox, but just kind of the way things are set up.
Well, it reminds me of that. Exactly. That 70%.
Yeah,
right? That 70%
of course, correct from there.
And the reason we were bringing it up originally at the beach was we were talking about real estate. We've been talking about investing for a long time, and we've been thinking about my dream vision, this ideal world that I created in my mind was we're going to bounce around to all these great coastal beach towns, and we're going to be able to find this perfect real estate opportunity where there's people are investing in the transportation and it's beautiful and the housing prices are going up and more people are moving to it. And then once I find all of these beautiful places to live, then I'll choose one that I want to buy a real estate investment. And then the conversation went to is like, you know, if there is a good opportunity, we should probably just jump on it, because it might take me 2 to 5 years to find that perfect one. But by that time I could have invested 2 to 5 years ago.
The other thing with, as we're going around and seeing these places and looking at that, I think we might, when we thought about it, I think we might be underestimating the actual level of hoops that you have to do. It's not just a matter of, oh, that's a good deal, we'll talk to them and sign some papers and send up a wire transfer and like a couple other. I don't think it's going to be very easy. Like, I don't think it's going to be very straightforward.
I think it'll be figure outable.
Oh, I mean, anything's figure outable. I'm just wondering from like how hands off it would be in terms of if you're gonna need to get like a manager or and like getting, you know what I mean? Like it might be difficult operating that from somewhere else unless you had someone inside working on it.
Yeah. Just trying to keep the real estate conversation alive. You know what I'm saying, people?
Yeah.
Trying to keep it in the space.
Yeah.
Everyone down here is talking about crypto though. Crypto
everyone seems to be
what everyone's taking advantage
Elon
of.
Musk invested $1.5 billion worth of Tesla stock, or it might have been personal or through via Tesla's investments into Bitcoin.
Into Bitcoin.
So, so it's just blowing up even further than it already was already going in that trajectory. So, I mean, and then also in terms of the optimal, like the best decision is probably going to be suboptimal. I mean, we've talked about this before, but there's microphones in a cup.
Yeah.
But if we,
I kind of like it.
Yeah, it's great. And one day, probably whether it's in 6 months or a year or a couple of years, we'll have some sort of more high tech mobile, like efficient mobile studio type information or situation. But if we waited until we felt like, let's go for all those kind of things, then maybe we probably wouldn't have even started yet.
Yeah.
So
it comes back to another James Clear idea, which is standardized for optimized.
Yeah. Which is, exactly. So,
which is what I kept trying to tell Abdu and just say, like, he's like, I want to do the show. I was like, just record one then.
Oh yeah. He's
get one up.
With
Chris? Get one up.
Yeah. That'd be funny.
Yeah. They are funny.
Yeah. Funny guys.
They're good. And for the first episode, I was like, damn, these guys are just like, you could tell they've been, well, it's like us, Sam. Yeah, they've been buddies for a long time.
Yeah.
Their banter is just different.
Did you listen to it?
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Abdu literally talked about sharding himself on the podcast. So funny. Different conversation for sure than the one we're having.
Funny cats.
They are funny cats. For sure.
So
I wonder if they, one of the concepts that we talked about when we were doing the meditation with River was she asked us after the podcast, or sorry, after the meditation session. It was a really, really great session. I really liked it.
Yeah, it was great. Really good guided meditation.
She had
the bowl.
Yeah, the sound bowl.
Like this reverberating bowl that just like, I don't know, it just vibrates. And you move this thing and then she like put it on we're all lying down, like Vipassana, what's it? Whatever, the lying down, Vipassana, the lying down meditation. And then all of our eyes closed lying down. And then she came around with these bowls and you could feel it on your chest as you're breathing it in. Yeah, very present, anchoring.
Describing opening the heart chakra. And like apparently the heart chakra's color is green. And she was like, imagine the green light opening it up, and gave you the chance to add your intention. But one of the things that she talked about after was around self-acceptance and self-love.
Yeah, but do you love yourself unconditionally?
Yeah.
Or do you love yourself when it's there's some sort of external thing that you should feel good about, quote unquote, as opposed to internally derived, I suppose.
Yeah, you seem like the kind of guy that would get off on that kind of philosophical question. What were some of the thoughts that you had around that concept of self-love and self-acceptance?
Yeah, I think it comes back to audiobook I was listening to last year by Michael Singer called The Untethered Soul. Yeah. Talking about having...
I think Princey was reading that too.
Yeah?
I think so.
Yeah, I think I might... Yeah,
it was great. Yeah, you might have recommended it.
And I just talked about having unconditional happiness / unconditional joy, whereas most of us say, once I get this thing, whether it's the promotion or something external, then I'll be happy, or while things are going good, I'll be happy, but then when I'm not, I won't be. And then just making the decision that no matter what, I'll be happy. And I think there's some part of our DNA that wants to worry about that, where if I go plant my flag and say I'm going to be unconditionally happy, then some horrible thing's going to imminently happen and try and test that new
well, it won't
mindset.
not.
Yeah, I mean, it won't not. I mean, but here's the thing: the negative things are going to happen anyway.
Yeah. Just reminds me of you getting robbed. There's like the conversation leading up to that day was about equanimity and being calm, and like not letting things, just letting things roll off your back, and then all of a sudden you get robbed, and like you're tested with that. Yeah. That idea.
Yeah, and then like with that, it just kind of there's a worry that arises when you think about being able to, or when you think about taking a statement like that and saying I'm going to be unconditionally happy, and then having to face some condition that's going to compromise that, so to speak. It was really interesting. I was listening to this short excerpt by Terence McKenna, great like psychedelic and spiritual philosopher in general, and he said that worrying is betting against yourself. And he said worry is praying to the devil, which it's more like an allegory or archetype to kind of the human condition. He's not necessarily suggesting there's a fiery demon with a pitchfork and tail, but there's it's the old expression of nothing new. We've probably talked about it before, but the old man, something. We've talked about it, whether it's on this or
the
not.
Old Man on the Porch.
Yeah, well, no, not the old man on the porch, but it's we
got old men in our
stories. The old man talking to the kid about the two wolves. There's two wolves inside of you. One's virtue and wisdom and love and tolerance and all those
generosity.
Kind of things, and generosity, and the other side is malice and evil and bitterness and resentment. And the boy asks, who wins? And the man says, whichever one you feed, and which is in alignment to like worrying would be feeding the negative wolf as opposed to the positive wolf. And it's really important just to I've been catching myself when I'm worrying. I'm like, why am I doing this right now? And then when you're thinking about that, then whether it was going to happen or not, you're going to start the wheels in motion of manifesting that thing.
Really create the reality around you.
Yeah.
It's like if I'm thinking positive and happy thoughts, when I even look at someone's face, the faces look different.
Yeah.
And they look happier, and they look like they're like the smile is turning upwards instead of downwards. If my frown's down, then their frown's. It's like just like all mirroring and matching each other. And Joe Dispenza, in his Rewired program, I know you read How to Change Your Mind. He's talking about most people, the majority of time, are thinking about what they don't want. So trying to avoid what they don't want to happen versus spending all of that time thinking about feeding the other wolf, which is all of the things that they do want to happen. All the things.
I've been guilty of this, but you could probably ask someone what they want, and they'll probably start describing things they don't want.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want? Well, I know I don't want a X, Y, Z. Sure. Instead of, So what have anything particular you've learned from Joe Dispenza lately?
From Joe lately?
Any other like practices, anything like that?
Yeah, well, this actually goes back to, and I'm glad we can talk about it here, because not being able to fully articulate means I don't fully understand it yet. So I'm still like uncovering and learning it. But it reminds me of one of the things that River said in that conversation was, I said to her, she asked me, what do you think about self-love? And I was like, well, if I compare myself to who I was yesterday and today I made progress and I did the things that I said I was going to do, then I feel good, then I love myself. And then she pointed out, she said something about like 5-dimensional being 5D.
5D. That's like a whole, I mean, it's just like it's kind of like an inside lingo on the outside world kind of thing to kind of get into that, unless you're going to really unpack it. But it's just a type of terminology around basically living in abundance and like in an awakened, enlightened type life, so to speak.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that Joe keeps talking about, is living in this quantum field.
Yeah.
And I don't fully understand it, but it reminds me of listening to Busting Loose in the Money Game audiobook last summer. Yeah. But this quantum concept where time doesn't exist, and space doesn't exist, and it's just all possibilities are happening at the same time. So all of the different iterations of my life are happening simultaneously. Mm-hmm. And one of the things River said in that conversation, like wrapping my head around, do I actually believe this? I don't know, but kind of just considering it, is this concept of, she said, the version of you that injured yourself exists right now. Yeah. And the version of you that's like fully healthy and athletic and exercising is existing right now. And so you can just love the fact that it's all happening. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to some of the conversations we've had at like dinner tables and even last night, where I was like, yo, bro, what am I going to do, man? Like sometimes I'm all optimistic that I'm making progress with my physical health. And other times I'm just like, what the hell? It seems like such an uphill battle.
Yeah.
And you're just like, tend to the part of the garden that you can reach.
Yeah. Start with one step. That's all you can do. You can't play old, more cliches, but yeah, don't try and boil the ocean all at once.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. Doesn't make any sense.
Boil the ocean at once.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, speaking of Joe, just thinking about like, he keeps mentioning quantum field. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly I'm not a doctor, I'm not a doctor in quantum mechanics. I don't know what that's about, but he talks about the stuff that does make a lot of sense to me is him talking about you waking up in the morning and then your body automatically trying to get a grasp of all of the things it already knows so it can solidify itself like in the conditioning of the past.
Because it craves kind of the autopilot, right?
It just wants everything to be as automated as possible.
Yeah, it wants all the areas of your life to be as much as like, think about you tying your shoe. You're not actually consciously tying it anymore. You don't have to think about the rope. Like if I had to verbally describe what to do to tie a shoe, I don't even know if I could say it because it's so autopilot. And our body craves the minimal, like from a physiological, biological standpoint, it craves kind of being lazy, the shortcuts, and just the least expenditure of energy to keep getting what it's been getting.
Yeah. And so he was just describing how virtually everyone wakes up and they try as fast as possible, like unconsciously. It's not like I'm gonna do the exact same thing that I did yesterday consciously, but it's happening automatically because your body craves getting into this state of autonomy. And what it ends up doing is it means that if you have dreams and goals and a vision for your life, of things you want to do and places you want to go and maybe habits you want to break, he said it's impossible if you're living in a conditioned past, because you'll always get what you've got if you always do what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it just reminds me of every day when I wake up and I'm thinking about checking my phone. You could see how that looking at my email, trying to go through my Instagram, trying to go through my Facebook is me trying to solidify myself in all of the things that I know, so that there's less uncertainty. As I said, in the present moment, anything can happen.
Yeah.
There's complete uncertainty.
Yeah. Yeah. And we think that it most of the time does follow along a general pattern of things, but there actually is room for it to be a total wild card. But also that it kind of just going back on the meet yourself where you're at, and then the Jordan Peterson, compare yourself to yourself yesterday. I like, don't get me wrong, I get it from it makes sense, and maybe this is going to be nitpicky, but if you do your workout,
we're open to that.
But like if you do your workout, you're doing your happy body every day, and then you do your happy body, and then later that day you go for a hike or a long walk with friends, which you didn't do the prior day. So then the next day comes and your legs are really way more sore than they were yesterday. And now and so maybe you can't do the workout to the full level as the one before. And you're like, well, I guess I'm getting worse because I couldn't do as much this workout.
Sure.
I think it's like, and it's better to compare yourself yesterday. It's better to compare yourself to who you were yesterday than 5 years ago or other people. But instead, why not just literally meet yourself where you're at? Do the best you can do in the exact situation you're in, with the exact variables, with the exact equipment, where you're at, with your energy level, with what you did yesterday, like all those variables, just literally do what you can with what you got.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me of this concept that keeps coming up around like not having preferences.
Yeah.
Because the only way that not having preferences works if you're not comparing it to anything.
Yeah.
Right. So instead of there being a better or worse, it's just whatever it is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Wherever I'm at is exactly.
It's like the amor fati, the love of fate. Basically, it kind of goes into the Epictetus: "Don't wish things how you'd like them to be, but wish them as they are."
Yeah.
And then it's like the Rumi quote of, "There's some place there between right and wrong. There's a garden. Meet me there."
Can you say that one again? When
yeah,
nice and slow.
Yeah. So it's the Islamic mystical poet Rumi, very, very classic. I think like 1200s, something like that.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh. And then what your physio our massage
Yeah,
therapist,
yeah.
Sam, what's up, Sam?
Sam, and she
from back in Toronto. Thank you for the massages.
Yeah, she gave me that book, and then I remember reading it in Hyde Park in Toronto. It goes on like microdosing mushrooms and reading it. It was pretty great. And so the quote is, there's a place somewhere between right and wrong, there's a garden, meet me there. And I thought that was really, really cool, because I noticed it in myself, just getting stuck in this habit of constantly appraising everything, being like, this is good, this is bad. And then if it's good, clinging onto it, I don't want it to leave, and it's better than that, so now I got to be scarce about it. Or if I don't have it and I had it before, then I'm saying, oh, it's worse. Or if it could get better but I don't have it yet, then it's not good. And it's just in this constant state of grading everything, which is both it's totally just exhausting.
Totally relate to that.
It's just like this duality of, it's getting outside of duality is the point, because the duality is right and wrong. So everything is either right or wrong. And even if it's a spectrum, it's saying it's mostly good and this amount bad, or mostly bad and this much good. And it's just, it really doesn't, it's not necessary. It's not really conducive to your well-being or doing well, because if you're just following within your nature and surrendering to what that is, and then that's what is good enough, as opposed to just living in this, constantly creating this mental expectation, this projection of how it should be, and then there's always the disconnect. Always.
There's always, no matter how small the gap is, there's a gap. I can totally relate to that. I'm sure a lot of people listening could relate to that experience as well. Like for the way it showed up for me, that I was actually able to pay attention to, it was like crystal clear was happening, was I was in the middle of stretching. As I was stretching, instead of stretching, I was thinking about my morning routine and how to optimize it. And I was like, should this go before that, or should that go before this? And how much time is it going to take if I do this versus that? And like, will I be able to get to writing in time? And it's like, I'm having this entire calculation dialogue in my head, rather than just like being present with the fact that right now I'm stretching and the next thing will be the next thing, but now I'm doing this.
Yeah. There's an element of like faith, trust, confidence to be present and then surrender to the next thing. It's very easy to do one thing and think about many other things. Like one of our favorite, Jim Rohn, he said, one of the things I figured out about life is don't get to work until you get to work. So he's like, don't think about work when you're in the shower. It just comes back to do one thing only. And I was talking to Mike the other night when you had already gone to bed, and we were talking about Mark Castell, founder of Fix. And
good old founder of Fix.
And I wrote it down, and Mike asked Mark, because Mark is wildly successful entrepreneur, super successful, so very smart, super savvy. And Mike asks him, he's like, Mark, what's your secret? And he said, don't multitask. Don't multitask. He says you can't. And there's no such thing. Because you're not actually multitasking. You're just quickly cycling through these different contexts. And then there's, in the same way we talked about before, you get to a place for a couple of days and you're just getting oriented. By the time you're oriented, you're moving on. The same thing, but on a more micro scale with any activity or project you're working on. And if you're constantly shifting, then you're not going into deep work, which we've talked about before. And deep work is really where going deep on a subject as opposed to surface level is really where you're going to make real strides of progress or contribution or significance.
One of the last times that I saw Mark Castell in person was before the pandemic, and we were in the office, and I was sitting beside Mohsen still. And he just sat down and rolled beside me just to chat for like 5 minutes. It was because I was working, and he just stopped in to see what was going on. And I was like, what's going on with you these days? And he's like, I've never been more present. I'm just living in the now. And that was the last time that I really saw him. And he looked very like zen and relaxed. Because I remember a time when he was like, I think he was trying to do the Series B raise, and he was like, noticeably tense. Mm-hmm. And then I think he hurt his back after that.
Yeah.
And then he started doing all this yoga,
and so it changed everything.
Really prioritized his self-care and his personal peace and happiness. And then like after that, you just see him and he'd be so zen.
Yeah, he's just happy dude.
Yeah.
Content.
And it all worked out for him.
Yeah, that guy's a great example of just following bliss.
Totally.
That guy just followed where he was interested in and didn't multitask and focused on whatever that thing he was doing. Did that very effectively. Mix in some pretty sweet IQ genetics.
Yeah, sure. He's smart dude.
Yeah,
for sure. No doubt. There's only one other thing that I was thinking of here. And I think this all is interdependent and comes back together with like, we've talked about like wearing masks on this show, like one of the first shows. And I noticed that as we've been traveling, especially in like transit, we've been seeing the same faces. And it reminded me of like how important it is to be present and congruent with who I am versus trying to wear a mask when I meet these people. Yeah. Because if I see them again.
By the way, he doesn't mean like COVID mask.
No, I don't mean that.
He means
a mask.
Like a
metaphorical
persona.
Yeah, like a metaphorical.
Playing a role type of thing.
Exactly. Just like, because like one of the things that I remarked to myself and I was like, oh yeah. And I think I've always noticed this, but as we travel and meet more people, it just seems so obvious where like being nice is like, being like a nice person is a good overall strategy. Just like being nice.
Yeah. Even if you are the most like trying to be the most selfish, like what's best for me, it's still to be nice.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Like we keep seeing the same people. And as an example, as we were getting on the bus from from San Jose to La Fortuna, we met this German guy. And we've seen him twice again since that bus. And every time we see him, it's just like smiles and so amiable between us because we were just like being ourselves when we met the guy and we're nice people. And so when we met him, it was just now every time we see him, it's just so easy to talk to him. And then in the hot springs, we had been drinking a bit and smoking weed. This was my birthday back in La Fortuna. And we met that group of Israeli young people.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't realize their impression of us until we saw them again in Monteverde, and they were like, "Oh my God, that's you guys!" And they were like they thought it was so funny how we were just like so eccentric and just like being ourselves. And they're like, "Where's your buddy? Like, what's he doing? Like, is he listening to music right now?" Because you were just like in your own world, just listening to music, hanging out. But they were like, you just like. You had this smile on your face and you had your goggles on your head and they were talking about me and then like I was high when I met them, but they're like, you had your goggles and you just couldn't get the smile off your face and you were just like trying to speak Spanish to us. And and it was just funny how like just being yourself is always the best approach.
And then also in the hot spring, we got a ride back from those people, and that would have been like an expensive cab ride. And even if we could have, it would have been, we'd have to call them and all that kind of stuff. So we got that. And then also reminds me of, on New Year's Eve when we were still at the hostel in Tulum, we were in this very busy dorms and we were talking to this couple from Lithuania, and we had borrowed something after like a very short conversation, borrowed something and just, they said, "I'll put it in my bag. We're going to go." And then we talked about it after and they just remarked to us, we're like, "Yeah, you trusted us," or whatever. He's like, "Yeah, you can just tell when you meet someone and there's going to be trustworthy." And we both, all four of us kind of remarked, we were like, we don't really know. You can't really put your finger on one variable, but there's just an obvious sense of, I can trust this situation or this person or not. Yeah.
And there's one of the things that Joe talks about a lot is like the three different parts of your brain, the forebrain, which is like the analytical mind, reasoning, things like that. And then the second one is more just like your body's intelligence, your nervous system. And it's like, that is actually like a higher intelligence where if you get a feel, and it sounds so like ethereal and it's not tangible. You can't grab onto it, but when you meet someone, you feel that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's a whole organism. We're not this fixed thing. It's this constantly changing organism.
Yeah. Tell me, maybe this is just like, maybe there's nowhere this goes, but when you wrote your poem, it seems like it was outside of the realm of the forebrain and analytical thinking.
In
like
the High Park one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, was it like, where does that, how does that,
I don't know. It was definitely a mystical
experiences.
I mean, I'm sure you can kind of get the kind of the kindling around and the spark might have to take care of itself. Maybe there's a point in which you can't fully force it.
Sure.
But I mean, I would definitely, that was probably I can think of as my first, I would say, mystical experience for sure. Because
have you ever said the poem on the show?
No, but I've said it on other ones. I've said parts of it. We'll save it for another.
No, it didn't mean you had to do it now, just in terms of giving context for people. So a couple of years ago, Ian was in High Park. And
I
his
wrote
first transcendent experience.
Yeah, it's a poem just about life and family and the human condition, basically, and about the tragedy of life being the impetus to do all the things that we appreciate and value during life. And I wasn't planning on writing poetry. I was just talking to someone the other day and they were like, how do you get into that? So I didn't mean to. I really didn't. I was planning on, I had a notebook and I was just going to write and just try and like write about random things that happened in my life, the things I'd forgotten about in that psychedelic state. And then it just like hit me and I had to write it. And I was just my whole body was so tense, and it was like, there was like this pressure of like the channel of some sort of like intelligence, and that the tension was like, I need to really focus and see what it's telling me and get it down before the channel or the door closes again, and I'm not going to be able to access it. So it felt like there was a real urgency to get the information down.
Sure.
And the natural of that was like
that's
everything else came up. Like it was I was just like, it was just things popping in my head and me writing it down. Sure. Like there was no, like it's not like I like had a regular analytical process about it as much as I just physically had to write it. I had no structure. I didn't know how long it was going to be. I was literally just writing one sentence, one sentence, one word at a time. And that's how long it ended up being.
Yeah. One sentence.
And like, which is interesting, as you know, you're writing a book and we look at stuff about writing, and everything you see on writing there's two parts to writing.
Discipline yourself and sit down.
But there's the actual production of it. And then the other half of writing is the editing process. And there's a lot of stripping it all away. Whereas this poem, which I feel like is one of the better things I've ever written, I didn't edit like anything. It was like word for word, essentially, like right on the original page. Nothing changed, which is cool.
One of the things you said that I want to open up, if there's anything there, is you mentioned seeing what it was telling me.
Yeah.
Was there a visual element at all, or?
I mean, it was just like, it was like a presence beyond, like when I say see it or feel it, it's like not by the regular senses. It wasn't a sight, smell, taste, touch, hearing. It was just like a presence of consciousness that I don't even know how to say it as much as I just felt it, and then felt compelled to write.
Got it. Yeah, because I've never had an experience like that before. Not on psychedelics anyway, but like even when I think about the Speaker Slam speech, that turned out to be an excellent speech and an excellent story, but it was like months of fucking like exactly how you described it, which was sitting down writing and then all of that editing, all that editing. It was basically all editing. The original speech was about 10 minutes long, and then it needed to get chopped down to something that was more succinct, but your poem just came out exactly how it was supposed to come out. So
interesting.
I couldn't help but.
And I hadn't written anything even within that realm, remotely within that genre ever. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, that was such a pivotal moment in your like writing as well. Because like after that, you're writing tons of poetry. And
actually, I don't think I really wrote poetry for another year after that.
Maybe it was on the BC road trip you started writing.
Yeah, I think I started writing a bit more then. Yeah.
So I was just curious because when I was thinking about like being my genuine self and being congruent with who I am, and knowing that that's going to attract the right people into my life when I meet people, instead of trying to put on this mask again, that analogy, the metaphor of wearing the mask, this persona, that feeling you get, because it didn't seem like when you wrote that it was something that was like conscious. It was just something that was like just like feeling. And
I think the reason why I think you made a good point around being a pivotal point, like on a broader sense for maybe like my creative path, if you will, just realizing that channel was available.
Sure. Like,
you hear about people being inspired and visions or whatever, but it seems like whatever doesn't really make any sense. There's no, like Herman Hesse and essay, and Siddhartha talked about how wisdom can't be imparted through communication or words, because it's not it. You can only kind of set the picture and frame it in a way that people already understand, and then hopefully lead them to it themselves.
Yeah.
But so when I heard of like that, like, I don't know if I'd heard of channeling or anything like that before, but it would have been it wouldn't mean anything to me. But now, and it's like it's not actually a channel. It's just a way of trying to communicate something that there isn't actually words for. But it just made me realize, whoa, there's like something going on here that's beyond our front of mind, regular day comprehension. Because I think like philosophically about the world, I've always like probably up until that point, or maybe a year later after that, always been what's called a materialist, which basically just means that you are your brain, and then when the brain dies, it's gone, and it's like, that's it. Everything can be just cut up and measured through. And it's not that there isn't an element of that. It's just that it doesn't paint the entire picture.
Sure.
And that was just like through the experiences of the psychedelic experiences, what you could call mystical experiences, transcendent experiences. It just made me realize, oh, there's something, I don't know what it is. I'm not here to be like, everyone should be living on this. There's nothing like that. Mystic, but there's something, but there's something going on that is bigger than what we claim to have direct knowledge about.
See how many acid hits we need to take before we go mystic.
Get a couple more in there. How about you? You have any mystical experiences?
One other question. One other thing I want to remark on, but let me think about that. Any mystical experiences was around Siddhartha, and like the big takeaway that I had is I never actually remembered any specific quotes or like specific moments that really stood out to me, but more of just like the theme of seeing things for myself, and it really inspired me to go see the world. Like it really inspired me to do and to be out and about, and to actually see it with my own eyes and touch it with my own hands. Yeah, because that was exactly that. Can you say the quote again about wisdom cannot be?
Yeah, something along the lines of wisdom cannot be imparted through communication or words or language.
Yeah, because I was, and I still value it so much, but it was so much, I put so much on a pedestal of like watching the YouTube videos and reading the books, and it's so important. You can't avoid that, and you can't forget how valuable it is. But then the other part of me was like, okay, like let me get on a plane and go somewhere. And like, let me meet new people, and let me talk about what interests them, and like see what interests me, and like try the surfing and try the meditation and try and Siddhartha really inspired me.
Yeah, it's very, very inspiring. And just in both of us, I mean, I don't know how many. I've read a bunch of his books now.
Yeah,
Herman Hesse, poetry.
That German guy we met at the bus stop.
Yeah, he read a bunch.
Loves Herman Hesse.
Yeah, he's definitely like, in terms of, because you mentioned the BC trip, started writing the poetry. It was reading a short story collection that I found in the Canmore Hostel.
Those short stories were so psychedelic.
So psychedelic.
Couldn't believe it, man.
Unbelievable. Yeah. They're so good.
Just like in terms of there being like no real linear path of what was happening, like we would just like jump from one part to another part, and it would be like a different universe all of a sudden. Yeah, it was like birds talking to you, and like
all this. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I would say he was definitely like some sort of mystic type guy, something along the lines. And I didn't even I heard the term mystic, but I didn't know what the fuck that meant. It didn't mean anything, but I actually get it. It's the mystical experience in some way. Had it the other night, getting in on some substances, but it was just back to the Rumi quote around, there's a place between right and wrong where there's a garden, meet me there. And it was just this presence of like an awakening into the moment outside of the illusion of duality of good and bad, and just seeing the complete harmony of everything. I remember we were sitting there, and there was the music and people talking, and I'm hearing the talking, and it's just like these noises that I like disassociated from the meaning. There's just noises going back and forth, being transmitted between each other, and the hammocks swinging and the eye contact and all of it. And it was just so harmonious, and it was outside of this judging and is it good and it's bad, am I liking this, am I not, could I improve it, is it worse, is it like that, and it just was and this kind of this presence, and this was big. Exactly the other 2 nights, this presence that everything is exactly where it should be, and that, I mean, you can stress yourself all out all you want, but like it's so needless, and you don't need to do it.
that makes me think of Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
That makes me think of the power of now, and how just like this transcendental experience, this like the mysticism and this satori we talk about, which is like
Zen
the
Buddhist term for awakening.
Yeah. And that's cool. There's a restaurant.
Yeah, Japanese restaurant called Satori.
We can't not eat at that.
Oh, yeah, and then we can get
a.
Yeah, if we get a good photo, we can put the location as Satori.
Yeah, and just like how like being fully present is Satori.
Yeah,
like when you're actually living in the power of now, you're experiencing Satori.
Yeah,
and there has been a lot of that.
Yeah,
and Eckhart Tolle talks about like you finding yourself living in unconsciousness and in this analytical mind and in this comparison and in this duality. And the more conscious you become, the more you find yourself in the power of now, the more you're living just enlightened and awakened, and, conscious.
Yeah. And it's like within that is all the things are happening. So you could argue there's a case to be made that it's good and it's bad and it's scary and it's contenting and it's sad and it's funny. And it's all those, and it's kind of like, you could kind of make the metaphor or allegory that life is like a silent disco. So silent disco, everyone goes, there's no out loud music, but everyone has headphones on with the music in. And then usually within that, there's 2, 3, 4, a couple different stations that you can have. So there'll be all these different people in the same dance floor dancing, but one person's listening to, and they're all listening to different types of music or a couple different ones. And then you realize that you can do that in any situation. Yeah. So like, and then there's multiple ways to implications from that, where you can choose the frequency, the channel that you're on, and you can be happy and you can be sad. And so you can uplift and empower yourself there. And then also realize that maybe other people are on a different one that isn't so good. And then that can help kind of imbue you some compassion, so to speak.
Yeah, it's funny how when you're on psychedelics, how like these cliche trite statements become so obvious. Yeah. And I was sitting there at the table last night and we were ordering food and everyone was shooting the shit. And I was just thinking to myself how like basically everything is improv like all the time. It's just anytime you meet a new person,
he's freestyle rapping. I'm like making some stupid joke. And you're like, he's freestyle rapping.
He's not. You know what I mean? It's all connected.
Yeah.
It's all connected. And it was just like you saying being in a silent disco reminded me of like this, like, you know, every time you walk into a room, it's basically like an improv set. You know, anything can happen because it's, you know, you're living from in the now and this impossibility and in unknown, and that's exciting.
Yeah.
It's exhilarating.
There's got to be, and then that's where you got to have a little bit of like confidence or faith metaphysically to be able to go into the unknown and face it and be optimistic and just excited and ready to take it on. Because if you're not, then you're going to want to, as you talked about before with Joe Dispenza, you start your day and you want to gravitate towards the known and the autopilot. So if you're afraid of the unknown because there's some sort of faith lacking, then you'll likely gravitate towards just staying within the comfort zone box. Sure. And there's probably, and a case could be made that there's nothing more uncomfortable than being stuck in the box of your comfortability.
All right.
Complete?
Sounds good to me.
My friend.
Until the end.